Lyra Kavanaugh stood on the balcony of her small apartment, staring at the city lights below. The hum of traffic, the distant sound of music, and the flicker of neon signs created a familiar comfort she had always loved. Yet tonight, none of it mattered. In her hands rested a thin metallic envelope bearing the insignia of the Interstellar Diplomatic Corps. She hesitated before opening it, knowing the words inside would change her life forever. "Congratulations, Lyra Kavanaugh," the letter began. "You have been assigned to the diplomatic mission to Xylaris and are required to enter into a ceremonial union with Prince Kale, heir to the Xylarian Empire." Lyra let out a slow breath, feeling her chest tighten. A ceremonial union, a marriage, with an alien. Her mind raced. She had studied alien cultures for years, trained in diplomacy, negotiation, and survival, yet nothing had prepared her for this. She had always valued her freedom, her independence, and now she was being asked to give it away for political reasons. "No," she whispered to herself. "I won't just go. I can't." But there was no choice. Refusing a diplomatic assignment could mean losing her career, her reputation, even her chance at influencing interstellar relations in the future. And despite her reluctance, Lyra had a duty. She knew it. She simply didn't have to like it. Chakir. Next day, Lyra arrived at the spaceport, a sprawling complex of glass, metal, and hovering vehicles. The Xylarian cruiser assigned to her mission gleamed under the artificial lights, its sleek silver hull reflecting the bustling human traffic below. As she approached, her heart thumped with a mix of excitement and dread. She had never left Earth before, let alone traveled to an alien world where humans were rare and often misunderstood. A Xylarian envoy awaited her, tall, graceful, with skin that shimmered faintly under the lights. The envoy bowed deeply. "Lyra Kavanaugh," he said in perfect English, though his voice carried a melodic undertone that sounded almost musical. "We are honored to welcome you to Xylaris. The prince awaits your arrival." Lyra nodded, forcing a polite smile. "Thank you. I look forward to meeting him." The journey through space was long, giving Lyra plenty of time to think. She walked the narrow corridors of the cruiser, observing the strange but elegant designs. Walls seemed to flow like liquid, and light shifted colors in response to movement. She paused at a window, staring into the endless expanse of stars. Somehow, the vastness of space made her feel both small and powerful at the same time. Humans had reached out into the stars, and here she was about to become a part of something she had never imagined. When the cruiser finally approached Xylaris, Lyra's breath caught. The planet was breathtaking. Cities of crystal towers rose like jagged mountains, their surfaces catching the sunlight in dazzling patterns. Floating gardens hovered above the ground, supported by unknown energy fields and rivers of glowing. Liquid traced winding paths across the landscape. It was unlike anything she had ever seen, beautiful, alien, and intimidating. Lyra stepped off the cruiser and onto the polished platform of the Royal Landing Station. The Xylarians greeted her. Formally, their movements precise, their faces calm and unreadable. She could feel their eyes on her, assessing, judging, curious. She straightened her shoulders and walked forward, determined not to show fear. Then she saw her. Princess Solara, the sister of Prince Kale, stood at the far end of the hall. She was tall and regal, her skin a pale, luminous shade of blue. Her hair shimmered like strands of silver, and her eyes glowed faintly with a soft, golden light. Lyra froze, caught by the intensity of the princess's gaze. But what happened next was even more astonishing. Solara froze completely. Her body stiffened, her expression locked in shock, and her glowing eyes widened as if she had seen something unimaginable. The hall grew quiet. Whispers rippled through the courtiers. No human had ever made a Xylarian react this way. Lyra's own heart raced. She had expected fear, curiosity, maybe even hostility, but not this. She took a small step forward, unsure of what to say or do. Solara blinked slowly as though coming back to herself. She tilted her head slightly, her gaze softening, but never leaving Lyra. It was the briefest moment of vulnerability from the alien princess, but it was enough to unsettle the room. The chief diplomat stepped forward, clearing his throat. "Princess Solara, please," he said gently, though his voice carried authority. "Let us proceed with the introductions." Solara straightened, composed once more, but her eyes lingered on Lyra longer than anyone thought appropriate. Lyra felt a strange mixture of fear and fascination. There was something in Solara's gaze, something more than shock. It was recognition, maybe even curiosity. The formal introductions continued. Lyra met Prince Kale briefly, a tall, stoic figure with piercing eyes and a calm, commanding presence. He nodded politely, but it was clear that his attention was elsewhere, watching his sister's reaction. Lyra smiled politely, hiding the whirlwind of questions inside her mind. Who was Solara really? Why had she reacted like that? And what did it mean for the future she was about to step into? As the day ended, Lyra was led to her quarters in the royal palace. She looked out at the alien city below, the floating gardens glinting under the setting sun. Her mind raced with thoughts of duty, uncertainty, and the strange connection she felt with Solara. For the first time in her life, Lyra realized that this mission would challenge her in ways she had never imagined, not just as a diplomat, but as a human. And somewhere deep inside, she felt a spark of curiosity, a small flame that promised adventure, danger, and perhaps a bond that could change the course of two worlds. Lyra closed her eyes, letting herself breathe. Tomorrow, her real journey would begin. The morning light spilled over the crystalline towers of Xylaris, casting rainbows across the floating gardens. Lyra Kavanaugh stood at her window, looking out over the alien city below. She could hear the faint hum of energy fields that kept the gardens suspended in midair and the soft whoosh of vehicles gliding silently along their tracks. The beauty of Xylaris was breathtaking, yet it did nothing to calm the nervous flutter in her stomach. Today was her first day in the royal court. She was no longer just a human diplomat, she was a guest, and potentially a bride. Lyra adjusted. Her attire, a simple silver dress that shimmered softly in the light, chosen to show respect for Xylarian customs without drawing unnecessary attention. Her reflection in the window showed a young woman determined to face the unknown, even as uncertainty gnawed at her. A servant arrived, gliding across the polished floor with a quiet elegance. "Mistress Kavanaugh," the servant said, voice melodic, yet precise. "The royal entourage awaits your presence in the grand hall." Lyra nodded and followed. The corridors of the palace were unlike anything she had ever seen. Smooth walls seemed to pulse gently with light, as if the building itself were alive. Artifacts of alien culture, floating sculptures, luminous tapestries, and devices that defied her understanding, lined the passageways. She tried to absorb everything, knowing that observation would be as important as etiquette in the coming hours. When Lyra entered the grand hall, she felt the weight of hundreds of eyes upon her. The hall was vast, lined with crystal columns that reflected the morning light, creating patterns on the polished floor. Xylarians of all ranks were present, their forms elegant and otherworldly. Some shimmered with subtle colors. Others carried themselves with regal poise. And at the far end stood the royal family, their attention focused on her arrival. Lyra's gaze immediately found Princess Solara. The memory of the previous day flashed through her mind, the way Solara had frozen, the intensity in her eyes. Today, Solara's posture was impeccable, her expression calm and composed. But Lyra noticed the slight twitch in her shoulders, a subtle sign that the princess had not forgotten the encounter. "Lyra Kavanaugh," said the chief diplomat, stepping forward. "We are pleased to formally welcome you to Xylaris. You will be under observation during your stay, but we hope you find our customs enlightening." Lyra inclined her head. "Thank you. I look forward to learning about Xylaris and contributing in any way I can." Her voice sounded steady, though her heart raced. The formalities continued, introducing her to the royal council, advisors, and servants. Every Xylarian she met had a certain precision in their gestures and speech, a discipline that contrasted with human spontaneity. Some whispered softly among themselves, curious about the human who had captured the princess's attention. Lyra could feel their scrutiny, but she refused to let it unsettle her. Finally, she was led to a smaller chamber to meet Prince Kale properly. He was taller than she had imagined, with a calm, commanding presence. His eyes were a deep shade of violet, and his voice carried authority without harshness. "Lyra," he said, inclining his head, "your journey was long. I hope it was not uncomfortable." Lyra smiled politely. "It was different, but I am ready to learn and to adapt." Kyle's eyes flicked briefly toward the entrance, where Solara lingered silently. "I understand. Your presence has surprised my sister," he said, his voice even. "Her reaction is unusual." Lyra nodded, unsure what to say. She remembered the way Solara had frozen, her glowing eyes locked on Lyra as if seeing something extraordinary. "I hope it wasn't unwelcome," she said cautiously. Kale's lips curved slightly. "It was unexpected, but unusual does not mean unwelcome. Perhaps it is the beginning of understanding." Lyra was not sure what he meant, but the comment lingered in her mind. After the introductions, Lyra was escorted to a training chamber where she would begin the ceremonial trial. The trial was designed to test humans in ways Xylarians believed only their own species could endure. Tasks included navigation in zero gravity, deciphering telepathic signals, and controlling energy flows, skills humans had never attempted. The chamber was vast, glowing softly with energy fields and holographic projections. As Lyra stepped inside, she felt a thrill of fear and excitement. This was not just a test of skill. It was a test of humanity itself, a chance to show what humans could do when faced with the unknown. Solara appeared at the edge of the chamber, her golden eyes observing Lyra with intense focus. She did not speak, but the weight of her gaze was palpable. Lyra felt a strange mix of tension and connection. The princess was no longer frozen, but there was curiosity there, an interest that Lyra could not explain. The trial began. Lyra floated in zero gravity, maneuvering carefully as holographic obstacles appeared around her. She used human ingenuity to anticipate movements and adapt quickly, completing tasks faster than the Xylarians expected. Solara's eyes widened slightly, though she did not comment. Lyra caught a flicker of admiration, subtle yet unmistakable. Hours passed. Lyra felt her muscles ache, but her mind sharpened. She solved the telepathic puzzles using logic and intuition, skills she had honed through years of study and practice. The energy flow task tested her coordination and patience, and for the first time she felt a real sense of achievement, proof that humans were more than capable of facing alien challenges. As the trial concluded, Solara finally stepped forward. "You exceeded expectations," she said softly, her voice carrying a note of wonder. "I did not think a human could adapt so quickly." Lyra smiled, feeling a warmth she had not anticipated. "I suppose humans are full of surprises." Solara's Golden eyes lingered on hers, unblinking for a long moment. Lyra felt a shiver of connection, an understanding that went beyond words. For the first time, the human and alien worlds seemed to touch, their boundaries softening through curiosity and respect. The day ended with a quiet ceremony, acknowledging Lyra's successful completion of the initial trial. Courtiers whispered, and even Prince Kale seemed impressed. But it was Solara's reaction that mattered most. She had moved from shock to fascination, a subtle shift that hinted at something deeper. Lyra returned to her quarters, exhausted but exhilarated. The city lights shimmered below, but her thoughts were elsewhere, focused on the mysterious princess who had frozen at her first sight. The trial had proven her capability, but it had also begun to weave a delicate thread between her and Solara, a thread that might change everything in the days to come. As Lyra lay down that night, she realized her journey on Xylaris was only beginning. And somehow, she knew that the frozen gaze of the alien princess was just the start of a story far larger than herself. A story that would test courage, intelligence, and the human spirit in ways she had never imagined. The morning sun bathed Xylaris in soft golden light, reflecting off the crystal towers and casting prismatic colors across the floating gardens. Lyra Kavanaugh tightened the straps of her suit and took a deep breath. Today was the next stage of the ceremonial trial, a series of tests designed to challenge humans in ways that Xylarians believed no other species could endure. She stepped into the trial arena, a massive chamber filled with shifting platforms, holographic projections, and energy fields that pulsed in unpredictable patterns. The walls of the arena seemed to stretch endlessly, creating an illusion of infinite space. Lyra's heart raced, but she reminded herself of one truth. Humans were resilient, adaptable, and clever. If any species could face the unknown, it was hers. At the edge of the arena, Princess Solara watched silently. Her golden eyes followed every movement, unblinking, calculating. Lyra could sense the princess's curiosity. It was no longer shock from yesterday, but fascination. The princess's stillness was almost unnerving, yet somehow comforting. The first test began. Zero-gravity navigation. Platforms floated in midair, moving unpredictably, while holographic barriers shifted without warning. Lyra leapt and twisted, using her body's natural balance to move from platform to platform. Xylarians relied heavily on energy manipulation and telepathy to move effortlessly, but Lyra had her own strengths, intuition, improvisation, and a willingness to take calculated risks. She dodged a sudden energy wave, narrowly landing on a platform that tilted dangerously under her weight. A gasp from the observing Xylarians rippled through the chamber. Lyra smirked inwardly. They expected humans to fail, but humans thrived under pressure. Next came the telepathic puzzle. A series of floating symbols appeared, each one glowing in a different color. Lyra was instructed to identify the correct sequence and manipulate the energy fields to unlock the next stage. She had no telepathic ability, but humans had something unique: pattern recognition and creative thinking. She observed carefully, noticing subtle shifts in the symbols' colors and positions. Slowly, methodically, she aligned them correctly. A soft chime echoed through the arena, signaling success. Solara's expression softened slightly, a flicker of admiration crossing her golden eyes. Lyra caught it and felt a spark of confidence. This alien princess, so precise and seemingly untouchable, had begun to notice human ingenuity. The final challenge was the energy manipulation task, the most difficult of all. Lyra was given a device that responded to thought and movement, designed for Xylarians to channel energy flows with precision. At first, nothing happened. The device seemed to resist her attempts, pulsing faintly as if testing her patience. Lyra closed her eyes, focusing not on force but on understanding. She observed how the energy responded to subtle movements, how slight adjustments could amplify the flow. Slowly, she began to control it, guiding beams of light to their targets with careful precision. Each success strengthened her confidence, and by the end of the test, she had mastered the device in a way no Xylarian had expected a human to. Solara stepped forward, her eyes shining. "Impressive," she said softly. "Your mind works differently, creatively. I did not think humans could adapt so quickly to Xylarian technology." Lyra smiled, feeling a mixture of pride and relief. "Humans are resourceful. We find ways to solve problems even in unfamiliar environments," a murmur ran through the observers. Some Xylarians had doubted her abilities, expecting the human to falter, but now those doubts were replaced by curiosity and respect. Lyra realized that the trial had become more than a test of skill. It was a demonstration of human potential, a chance to show that her species could inspire, even challenge, an advanced alien civilization. As the day continued, Lyra and Solara were paired for a collaborative task. They had to navigate a maze filled with shifting energy barriers to retrieve a crystal artifact at its center. Lyra relied on her quick thinking and intuition, while Solara provided precise guidance and control of the energy fields. At first, their styles clashed. Lyra's improvisation seemed chaotic to Solara, and Solara's rigid precision frustrated Lyra. Yet slowly they began to synchronize, each learning from the other. Lyra discovered patterns in the energy fields that even Solara had not anticipated, while Solara adapted to Lyra's creative approach. Together they reached the artifact, completing the challenge with a grace that surprised everyone in the chamber. Afterward, Solara approached Lyra. "I underestimated you," she admitted, her voice quiet but sincere. "Humans are different, not weaker, not simple. You adapt, and you endure." Lyra felt a warmth she had not expected. For the first time, she saw the princess as more than a royal observer. Solara was a person capable of growth, curiosity, and even admiration. "Thank you," Lyra replied, "and I underestimated you too. Xylarians are precise, clever, and strong. I have much to learn from you." The day ended with the court acknowledging her success. Though Lyra was exhausted, her mind buzzed with excitement. She had faced challenges designed to test human limits, and she had exceeded them. She realized something important. It was not just her skill or intelligence that mattered. It was the human spirit, resilience, creativity, and courage that had made the difference. As night fell over Xylaris, Lyra returned to her quarters, the city glowing like a field of stars below her window. She thought of Solara, the frozen princess who had reacted so strongly upon first seeing her. That reaction had changed. It was no longer shock, but interest, perhaps even respect. Lyra could not predict what the future would bring, but one thing was certain. She had made an impression, and that impression had the potential to change not just her own destiny, but the relationship between humans and Xylarians. Lying down that night, Lyra felt a quiet sense of purpose. The trials had tested her, yes, but they had also revealed a new truth. Humans could inspire, even in worlds far beyond their own. And as she drifted into sleep, she realized that her journey on Xylaris was no longer just about duty. It was about possibility, connection, and the quiet strength of the human spirit that could touch even an alien heart. The next morning on Xylaris dawned clear and bright, sunlight spilling over the floating gardens and casting shimmering reflections across the crystal towers. Lyra Kavanaugh walked through the palace corridors with a new confidence. The trials had proven her skills, and whispers among the Xylarians had shifted from doubt to curiosity. She was no longer just a human guest. She was a presence that commanded attention. At the edge of the central courtyard, Lyra saw Princess Solara waiting, her posture calm, but her golden eyes gleaming with interest. Lyra paused, unsure if the princess intended to speak, but Solara simply gestured toward the gardens. "You wish to see them," Lyra said cautiously, referring to the floating gardens. "I can show you the view from the terraces." Solara tilted her head slightly. "I wish to walk among them. With you." Lyra felt a momentary surprise. The princess's words carried no formality, no command, just curiosity. It was a small step, but significant. She nodded, leading the way. The gardens were breathtaking. Plants floated on invisible fields, their leaves glowing softly in colors Lyra had no names for. Crystal streams reflected the sky above, and delicate creatures flitted from flower to flower. Lyra walked carefully, guiding Solara along the pathways, noticing the way the princess studied everything with sharp intelligence. "You are different from other humans I have seen," Solara said quietly. Her voice was soft, almost hesitant. "Not timid, not cautious for no reason. You adapt, and you do not fear the unknown." Lyra smiled. "We have to adapt. Fear slows us down. Humans learn to use what we have, even when we face what we cannot predict. It is our strength." Solara considered this, her gaze lingering on Lyra. "Perhaps I underestimated your kind." The afternoon passed in quiet conversation and exploration. Lyra spoke of human culture, of art, music, and humor. Solara listened with fascination, her expression occasionally softening into what could almost be called a smile. Lyra realized that this was the first time she had seen the princess truly relaxed, away from the formal court and the watchful eyes of her family. As they walked, a sudden alert sounded throughout the palace. Red lights flashed along the walls, and the soft hum of energy shifted into an anxious pulse. Lyra's stomach tightened. Something was happening. Solara's eyes narrowed, her previous calm disappearing. "A fleet approaches," she said, voice precise but urgent. "Not Xylarians. They are rogue vessels, hostile." Lyra's mind raced. "How many? What are their weapons?" Solara gestured to a holographic display projected from her wrist. Dozens of sleek ships were converging on the city, energy shields glowing in anticipation of battle. "They intend to take our technology. They will not leave without a fight." Lyra took a deep breath. "Then we fight, but we fight smart." The princess's golden eyes studied her. "You speak with confidence. Humans are bold. And we survive," Lyra replied, meeting Solara's gaze. "If we work together, we can protect this city." The court quickly convened, and Lyra was asked to provide strategies. Her knowledge of human improvisation and creative tactics complemented Xylarian technology in ways no one expected. She suggested using the city's floating gardens as mobile cover and creating decoys with energy projections to confuse the attackers. Solara observed, her expression intense, and then nodded. During the preparations, Lyra and Solara worked side by side, mapping strategies, directing defenses, and anticipating enemy movements. For the first time, Solara allowed herself to trust another being completely, trust a human to make decisions that could determine the safety of her planet. As the hostile fleet arrived, the sky above the city erupted in brilliant colors: laser, beams, energy shields, and the hum of advanced alien engines. Lyra's plan unfolded. Decoys distracted the enemy ships while the gardens shifted, hiding Xylarian defensive units and creating traps. The human intuition combined with alien precision proved effective. Solara maneuvered the energy barriers with skill, guiding their forces, while Lyra predicted enemy movements and suggested tactical maneuvers. Together, they orchestrated the defense, a combination of Xylarian elegance and human ingenuity. The invaders faltered, surprised by the unexpected coordination, and were forced to retreat after a tense but brief battle. When the last enemy ship disappeared beyond the atmosphere, the city erupted in cheers, though the palace remained calm. Solara turned to Lyra, her expression unreadable at first, then slowly softening. "You were exceptional, not just in the trial, but here. You guided us in ways I could not have imagined." Lyra shook her head, still catching her breath. "We guided each other. We combined what we know. Humans are good at thinking differently, but we still need guidance sometimes." Solara's golden eyes lingered on hers. "I see now that your kind has value beyond what I understood. Perhaps even beyond what my family believed." The day ended with a quiet moment in the central gardens, the air filled with the soft hum of energy fields and the glow of floating flowers. Lyra realized that something had changed. The princess who had frozen at first sight now walked beside her with trust and curiosity. A bond had begun to form, not of obligation, but of mutual respect and understanding. That night, Lyra returned to her quarters, exhausted but exhilarated. The city lights shimmered below, reflecting in her wide eyes. She thought of Solara, the princess who had first frozen, then observed and now worked with her as an equal. Humans were far from ordinary in this galaxy, she realized. Their courage, creativity, and adaptability could inspire even the most advanced civilizations. As she lay down to sleep, Lyra understood the truth of her journey. It was no longer just about surviving or proving her worth. It was about building connections, forging bonds, and showing that humanity could stand alongside the stars with pride and purpose. And in the quiet glow of Xylaris, she felt a spark of hope, one that promised change, understanding, and perhaps even friendship or more with the alien princess who had once frozen at her sight. The sun rose over Xylaris, painting the crystal towers in warm gold and the floating gardens in shimmering light. Though the city had survived the first attack, tension remained in the air. Lyra Kavanaugh moved swiftly through the palace corridors, her mind working faster than ever. The previous day's battle had revealed weaknesses in the city's defenses, and she intended to correct them before the next attack. Princess Solara awaited her in the strategy chamber, her golden eyes sharp and focused. "The invaders may return," Solara said quietly. "We must be ready." Lyra nodded, unrolling a holographic map of the city. "I've been thinking about how we can use human strategy to our advantage. Humans often survive by using unpredictability, improvisation, and understanding the enemy's behavior. I think we can combine that with Xylarian technology to create a defense they will not anticipate." Solara raised an eyebrow. "Unpredictability?" Lyra smiled. "Yes, your technology is precise. My ideas may seem risky, but humans often succeed because we try what no one else would think of. Together we can turn your strengths into an unbeatable advantage." The princess studied her silently for a moment, then nodded. "Very well. Show me your plan." Lyra explained her strategy, moving floating gardens to create shifting cover, using energy projections to make decoys, and establishing traps that relied on enemy assumptions. The Xylarians would control the energy barriers, while Lyra coordinated human-style improvisation to adjust to unexpected moves. It was daring, unconventional, and risky, but that was exactly why it could work. Solara worked alongside her, refining the details. Lyra noticed the subtle changes in the princess, how her rigid posture softened, how she allowed herself to consider a human's perspective, and how her respect for Lyra deepened with every decision. For the first time, Solara was not just observing Lyra, but collaborating with her as an equal. Hours passed as the city prepared. Xylarian forces aligned with Lyra's plan, floating gardens shifted into position, and energy fields hummed with Anticipation. Lyra's pulse quickened. This was more than strategy. It was a test of trust, collaboration, and human ingenuity. The first signs of the enemy fleet appeared on the horizon. Dark, sleek ships moved swiftly, shields glowing ominously. The city's alarms blared, and Xylarians took their positions, their forms precise and ready. Lyra stood beside Solara, watching carefully, ready to adjust the plan as needed. The enemy attacked swiftly, their ships firing energy beams toward the city. Lyra held her breath as the decoys activated. Energy projections created illusions of fleets where there were none, confusing the invaders. The floating gardens moved, shielding the city's key points and creating unexpected openings. "Now!" Lyra shouted. "Guide the energy barriers toward the left flank. The enemy expects the right." Solara's golden eyes locked on hers, and with a subtle gesture, she redirected the energy fields. The enemy fleet, expecting a predictable defense, faltered. Lyra's instincts guided the Xylarians through each unpredictable move, blending human spontaneity with alien precision. Hours of tense maneuvers followed. The enemy fired relentlessly, but Lyra's improvisation kept them off balance. She adjusted the decoys, shifted the gardens, and predicted enemy patterns with human intuition. Solara responded with perfect timing, manipulating energy fields, with skill and elegance. Finally, the invaders faltered. Their formation broke, and one by one, their ships were forced to retreat. Cheers erupted across the city, though the palace remained calm. Solara turned to Lyra, her expression soft but serious. "You were extraordinary," Solara said, her voice carrying awe. "I doubted a human could understand our technology, let alone use it to guide our defenses so effectively." Lyra shook her head, still catching her breath. "It wasn't just me. It was all of us, Xylarians and humans together. We combined what we know. The human mind is good at seeing patterns differently, but your people provided the power and precision." Solara studied her, golden eyes shining. "I underestimated your kind. You are clever, resilient, and brave. More than that, you inspire confidence. You show what humans can do when given trust and responsibility." Lyra felt a warmth in her chest. It was more than gratitude. It was connection. The princess, who had once frozen at her first sight, now walked beside her as a partner, respecting her mind, her courage, and her spirit. Lyra realized something profound. Humans were not just survivors in the galaxy. They could inspire, lead, and create bonds that even an advanced alien civilization could not ignore. After the battle, Lyra and Solara walked through the central gardens. The floating flowers glowed softly in the evening light, reflecting in the calm waters below. Solara's golden eyes studied the surroundings, but they often drifted toward Lyra. "You changed my perspective," Solara said softly. "I thought humans were limited, fragile. But you are remarkable. I can see now why our leaders respect your species." Lyra smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "We have potential, Princess, but so do you. Xylarians are incredible, so precise, so capable. Together, humans and Xylarians can do great things." For the first time, Solara's reserved demeanor relaxed completely. She laughed softly, a sound like wind through crystal. "Perhaps we could learn much from each other, not as teacher and student, but as equals." Lyra felt her heart lift. She had come to Xylaris expecting challenge, duty, and discomfort. Instead, she had found collaboration, respect, and a spark of friendship, or perhaps something more. The trials, the battle, and the unexpected connection with Solara had transformed her mission into something far greater. That night, as Lyra returned to her quarters, she looked out over the city. The crystal towers reflected the stars above, and the floating gardens shimmered gently in the soft light. She realized that humans had more to offer than the Xylarians, or perhaps even she herself had imagined. Courage, creativity, and the ability to inspire others were traits that could bridge worlds. And as she lay down to rest, Lyra understood the truth of her journey. This was no longer just about survival, duty, or even proving her worth. It was about connection, respect, and the quiet, powerful spirit of humanity that could touch hearts, minds, and entire civilizations. In the distance, the palace lights glimmered, and Solara's golden eyes lingered in her memory. A bond had been forged, one that promised change, trust, and the possibility of unity between human and Xylarian alike. Lyra smiled, knowing the adventure was far from over, and that the future held even greater challenges and triumphs for both species. The sun rose over Xylaris, casting a soft golden glow across the crystal towers and floating gardens. Lyra Kavanaugh stood at her window, watching the city slowly come to life. After the recent battle, the atmosphere in the palace had shifted. The court no longer viewed her as just a human guest. They regarded her as a capable, trusted ally. But more than that, she had changed how Princess Solara saw humans. Today marked the final ceremony of her stay, the formal acceptance of the human diplomat into the royal circle. Though Lyra had expected formality and ritual, she also felt a quiet anticipation. This ceremony was not only about recognition, but about connection, understanding, and the bridging of two very different worlds. When Lyra entered the grand hall, the courtiers bowed respectfully. Their eyes no longer held doubt or suspicion. They held curiosity and quiet admiration. Solara stood near the throne, her posture composed, yet relaxed. Lyra noticed a small smile playing on her lips, a sign of warmth, trust, and perhaps more than friendship. Prince Kael approached Lyra, his violet eyes calm but thoughtful. "Lyra," he said, inclining his head, "you have shown courage, intelligence, and creativity that surpass expectations. Xylaris is fortunate to have your insight." Lyra smiled politely. "Thank you, Prince Kael. I only hope humans can continue to contribute, not just in times of challenge, but in peace as well." The ceremony began. A holographic display illuminated the hall, tracing the history of Xylaris and its connections with other civilizations. Then it focused on humans, noting their ingenuity, adaptability, and courage, traits that had inspired many Xylarians, particularly Princess Solara. Whispers filled the hall as the display recounted the recent defense of the city and the human-led, strategies that had protected countless lives. Finally, the formal moment arrived. Lyra and Solara stepped forward. The princess extended her hand, and Lyra took it without hesitation. The gesture was simple, yet full of meaning: trust, respect, and acknowledgement. "Humans are remarkable," Solara said softly, her golden eyes meeting Lyra's. "Not because of strength alone, but because of courage, adaptability, and the ability to inspire. I see now that humans are not just guests or allies. You are equals, and more." Lyra felt a warmth spread through her chest. "And I see that Xylarians can teach humans much as well. Precision, discipline, and unity. Together, we can achieve more than either species alone." A hush fell over the hall. Then the chief diplomat spoke, his voice carrying authority and reverence. "Let this ceremony mark not just recognition, but the beginning of a lasting partnership. Let humans and Xylarians work together, guided by mutual respect, understanding, and courage." The ceremony concluded with a gentle glow of energy flowing through the hall, a symbolic display of unity between species. Courtiers and dignitaries stepped forward, offering respectful words to Lyra. For the first time, she felt fully accepted, not as a human outsider, but as a valued participant in Xylarian society. After the formalities, Lyra and Solara walked through the central gardens. Floating flowers drifted softly on energy fields, reflecting the sunlight in hues of gold, pink, and blue. The air was filled with a soft hum of life, quiet, yet alive. "You have changed my view of humans," Solara said, her voice soft and sincere. "You are clever, brave, and inspiring. I thought our worlds were too different to understand one another, but you have shown me that connection is possible." Lyra smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "We are different, yes, but differences can teach us as much as similarities. Humans survive because we adapt, learn, and persist. And we have learned from you as well, the value of precision, focus, and foresight." Solara's golden eyes shone with admiration. "I would like to continue learning from you, not because duty demands it, but because I choose to." Lyra felt her heart lift. It was more than duty. It was choice, respect, and trust. "And I would like that as well," she replied. In the following days, Lyra helped the Xylarians improve their defensive strategies, share human perspectives on problem-solving, and build stronger communication between their civilizations. Every day, her relationship with Solara deepened. They laughed together, debated strategies, and explored the floating gardens, sharing knowledge, culture, and curiosity. The palace began to see humans not just as outsiders, but as collaborators, capable of guiding, inspiring, and contributing to a brighter future. Lyra's courage and ingenuity had proven that humans could stand alongside advanced civilizations as equals, respected and valued. Finally, the day came for Lyra to decide her permanent role. The court awaited her response. Would she return to Earth, or would she remain on Xylaris, a bridge between worlds? Lyra walked to the central terrace, the floating gardens shimmering around her. Solara approached quietly, her presence steady and reassuring. "I have made my decision," Lyra said, her voice firm yet calm. "I will stay, not because I am required to, but because I choose to. There is much we can learn from each other, and much we can accomplish together." Solara's golden eyes softened into warmth, her small smile radiating approval. "Then you are not just a human on Xylaris. You are part of this world now, and part of my life as well." Lyra felt a surge of emotion, pride, excitement, and hope. She had faced trials, danger, and uncertainty, yet she had emerged stronger. The human spirit, resilient, courageous, and innovative, had made a mark on this alien civilization. That evening, the city celebrated. Music filled the air, soft and melodic, blending Xylarian harmonics with human rhythms. The floating gardens glowed under the starlight, and energy fields pulsed gently as if acknowledging the harmony between worlds. Lyra walked among the crowd, her eyes searching for Solara. The princess found her, and together they watched the city sparkle in peace. For Lyra, the journey had begun with reluctance, fear, and doubt. But it had grown into something extraordinary: trust, partnership, and the promise of unity between humans and Xylarians. The bond she had formed with Solara symbolized the potential for understanding, friendship, and cooperation across the galaxy. As night deepened, Lyra and Solara stood together in the gardens, watching the stars above. "Humans have a saying," Lyra said softly, "that courage is not the absence of fear, but the strength to act despite it. I think we have both shown that today." Solara nodded, her golden eyes reflecting the stars. "And I have learned that even the smallest human spark can ignite change in the galaxy. Together we are stronger than either of us alone." Lyra smiled, knowing that her presence on Xylaris was more than duty. It was purpose, partnership, and the beginning of a new era. Humans had proven their worth not just in skill or strength, but in spirit, courage, and the ability to inspire. And for the first time, she truly understood the meaning of unity, respect, and hope across worlds. The stars above Xylaris shone brightly, mirrored by the sparkling city below. For Lyra Kavanaugh and Princess Solara, the adventure was far from over, but the foundation had been laid. Together, human and Xylarian, they would face the galaxy, not as strangers, but as allies, friends, and equals. And in that shared promise, a new story of courage, ingenuity, and unity began, one that would endure across worlds for generations to come.